like this time, if you would you maybe tell our students what it was like in Belgium before the German invasion, and then how life took a turn afterwards?
Well, let me know if you can hear me. My voice will carry it all the way to the back. I was raised in Belgium, went all through school, high school, college, etc. And life was very peaceful. I realized that you have no idea what Belgium is. It's a teeny tiny little country that sits on the English Channel opposite of England, opposite the White Cliffs of Dover. And it is not agricultural, it actually mines coal, and its principal industry is diamonds. Belgium is famous for its diamond cutters and workers. Outside of that, it's very peaceful. It's a lovely little country, and the food there is excellent. I would recommend visiting it just for the sake of eating out. But outside of that, it has some excellent schools. The climate is perfect. It's humid, but it's seldom if ever see a drop of ice or snow. It's a temperate climate. It doesn't get hot, it doesn't get cold. You get used to it very fast. And I'm trying to think of what else I can tell you about it, but it's a tiny country. It's the distance from here, I don't know, the distance from Atlanta to Augusta, I imagine, would cut it in half. It's small, but then it's surrounded by other countries which also are small. The Netherlands, Denmark, Finland, all these places are small. And they're interesting because they each have their own culture. Each of these little nations is self-sufficient. It has its own language, its own government, its own laws, and it's very proud of its heritage. And you'll find all kinds of names of history woven through the canvas of the life and times in Belgium. Before the war, it was nice and quiet. I was going to school, my brother was going to school, and then one morning we woke up to the sound of bombs exploding in the distance. We could hear it blowing up in the distance. They came closer and closer. And then, of course, we realized that we were under attack by the Germans. The Germans had invaded all these little countries, of which I mentioned a minute ago, and occupied them without any resistance on the part of the inhabitants of the country, which, of course, had no means of fighting a giant like Germany was. And that's where our nightmare began. Germans had invaded Europe, all of it. France, England, no, I'm sorry, not England. France, Belgium, Holland, Denmark, all these countries were now under the domination of the Germans. And the Germans promptly made their organizational powers in motion and issued ID cards to everybody in the country. Everybody had a new ID card, and there were two kinds of ID cards. The standard card was a pale green card, and it had an ID photograph in it and the address and so on. And the other ID card was yellow, and when you opened it up, it had a red band across the surface of it, and in red letters above it, it said Jew. I don't know if you realize it, but the Germans had one aim in life, and that is to have a pure nation. And they were purifying the nation by exterminating all the Jews. They figured that after they had killed off all the Jews, they'd have a country that was really something of a wonder, because it would be pure, a pure nation. Of course, it's ridiculous, because even the purest of pure are mixed with each other now in the world. It's so broad and so big. Anyway, from then on, we began to feel the problem that we were facing. The Germans, first of all, I told you, issued the cards. Then they started plundering the stores. All the stores, all over the country, and probably in the countries around us, were plundered. All the coffee was gone, all the tea was gone, all the sugar was gone. You couldn't get any of that in the store. The shelves were empty everywhere. So we learned to live like poor, destitute people, eating whatever was available, mostly peas, dried beans, once in a while a potato, once in a while a carrot. The bread was unmentionable. They made bread out of, I don't know, wood shavings, I would imagine it was. That at least tasted like it. It was awful. It was horrible. You went to the baker's and you bought yourself a loaf of bread, pretty loaf of bread. It was real pretty, and it had just come out of the oven. It was glistening brown. It was beautiful. And then while it was still warm, you said, "Oh, I'm going to slice myself a slice of this delicious bread." And you took the loaf and a knife and you started sawing. And when you sawed well, the whole inside balled up in a gluey ball that nothing could perforate. But you could eat the crust on the outside, if you chewed well enough. But it was pitiful. We were like that for 5 years. It's not something that came and went. It just continued day in, day out.